I gave him everything, my love, my trust, my soul, only to be repaid with ruin. My father's business collapsed. My mother's frail body withered under the weight of shame. And my siblings turned their backs on me, and him, he stood there, smirking, holding her hand, the woman he chose over me. The court's verdict echoed in my ears. Guilty, betrayed, framed, destroyed. As the cell door slammed shut, the last thing I saw was his triumphant grin. But fate wasn't done with me yet, because the next time I opened my eyes, I was standing at the beginning again. The air smelled different, familiar yet distant. My heart pounded as I looked around, realizing I was not in a cold prison cell, but in my bedroom. The same soft lavender curtains, the same polished mahogany dresser. My reflection stared back at me in the mirror. No prison scars, no hollow eyes, just the face of a woman who hadn't yet lost everything. My hands trembled as I reached for my phone, dreading what I might find. The date flashed on the screen. It was 2 years before my downfall. I was back, and this time I would not lose. A slow, eerie calm spread through my chest. The past 2 years, his betrayal, my family's ruin, my suffering, were burned into my soul. But now, I had the greatest weapon. Foreknowledge. I wouldn't make the same mistakes. I wouldn't be the naive fool who handed him my love, my money, my life on a silver platter. No, this time, I would play the game better than him. My fingers curled around the phone, my mind racing with possibilities. He thought he controlled my fate. He had no idea what was coming. The first move was simple. Play the fool. If I changed too fast, he'd suspect something. So I forced a smile as I met him later that evening, my heart thrumming with a mix of disgust and cold anticipation. He pulled me into his arms, whispering sweet lies against my hair. My body stiffened, but I forced myself to melt into the embrace. He thought I was still his. Good, because soon I would destroy him with the same love he used to destroy me. I studied him, every smirk, every calculated glance. He was a master manipulator, but he wasn't expecting a woman who had already seen the ending of this story. He kissed my forehead, playing the role of the devoted lover, but I knew better. I knew that behind those honeyed words was a man who would ruin me without a second thought. Not this time. This time, I would take everything from him before he had the chance to take from me. At dinner, he spoke about the future we would build together, the life he pretended to dream of, marriage, success, a family, lies, all of them. My stomach churned, but I kept my smile in place. He didn't realize I already knew his real future, one where he would leave me broken and alone while he built that dream with her. But now, that future was a lie, because I was rewriting this story. The next morning, I called my father. My voice trembled as I spoke, not from fear, but from the overwhelming relief of hearing him alive. And well, the last time I saw him, he had been a broken man, ruined because of me, but today he was still the proud businessman, unaware of the storm looming over him. Not this time. This time, I would save him before it was too late. I walked into my father's office, my mind already crafting the first steps of my plan, the documents he trusted me with. The ones I had foolishly handed over to him in my past life were neatly stacked on my father's desk. My fingers tightened. Not again. I wouldn't sign anything. I wouldn't let my father be blindsided by my mistakes. This time, I would protect my family instead of being the reason they fell. That night, he held me close, whispering about an investment opportunity, his voice smooth and convincing. In my past life, I had agreed, transferring my father's money into his hands, believing we were building a future together. That was the first step of my downfall. My lips curled into a smile, and I gazed up at him with innocent eyes. "That sounds amazing," I murmured, but inside, I was already plotting how to make this deal the first step of his downfall. As I lay beside him, listening to his steady breathing, I realized something. I wasn't just here to stop him. I was here to ruin him. Every step he took, I would already be 10 ahead. Every scheme he devised, I would twist it into his own destruction. He thought he was the mastermind. He was just another piece on my board now. And the best part? He had no idea. Morning sunlight streamed through the curtains, but my mind was already awake, racing through the pieces of my plan. I had 2 years' worth of memories, betrayals, and mistakes burned into my soul. This time, I wouldn't let him slip through my fingers. I turned to face him, still asleep beside me, his features relaxed in false innocence. The same face that had smiled while he destroyed me. My chest tightened with anger, but I forced a slow breath. Patience. The game had just begun. Slipping out of bed, I moved to my dresser, opening the jewelry box he had given me last year, a meaningless trinket meant to buy my loyalty. I ran my fingers over the silver chain, remembering how I had clutched it in desperation when my world fell apart. Not this time. This time, I would make sure the only thing he had left to hold on to was his own downfall. I dressed carefully, choosing a soft, neutral outfit, the same kind I used to wear when I was blindly in love. If I was going to make him believe nothing had changed, I had to play the part perfectly. As I buttoned my blouse, I caught my own reflection. My eyes, they weren't the same ones he had deceived before. There was steel in them now. Good, because I needed to be stronger than ever. Downstairs, breakfast was set on the table, the scent of fresh toast and coffee filling the air. He strolled in, pressing a lazy kiss to my cheek, as if he deserved to touch me. I forced a soft laugh, tilting my head up to meet his gaze. "Sleep well." My voice was light, sweet, the perfect illusion. He smiled, unaware of the storm brewing beneath my skin. Let him think I was still his fool. I sipped my coffee, listening as he casually mentioned a new business venture, his voice dripping with excitement. This was it, the first step of his trap, the same investment he had used to manipulate me, to entangle my father's company in his web of lies. I set my cup down carefully, my pulse steady. This time, I wouldn't walk into his trap. I'd turn it back on him. "Tell me more," I murmured, eyes wide with interest. He grinned, pulling out his phone, showing me charts and numbers just like before. I let my fingers brush his wrist as I leaned closer, feigning admiration. He had no idea I already knew exactly how this would end. And soon, he'd realize he wasn't the predator in this game anymore. Hours later, I met with my father in his study. He was the same, stern, sharp-eyed, but still trusting of the daughter who had once failed him. The weight of my past mistakes pressed against my ribs, but I swallowed it down. "Dad, I need to talk to you about an investment opportunity," I said carefully, his brow furrowed, curiosity flickering in his gaze. This time, I wouldn't let him be blindsided. I laid out the details, feeding him just enough information to make him wary. My father had always been a shrewd businessman. He had trusted me too much last time, believing in my blind love. This time, I'd make sure he never placed that trust in the wrong man again. I watched as understanding dawned in his eyes. He exhaled, shaking his head. "You're smarter than I thought," he murmured. If only he knew how much smarter I had become. When I returned home, he was waiting, arms open, eyes gleaming with the confidence of a man who thought he was winning. He pulled me close, his voice low and warm. "We're going to build an empire together." I smiled against his chest, inhaling his scent, memorizing the feel of him, the man who thought he had broken me. I held on for just a second longer before whispering, "Yes, together." But in my heart, I knew the truth. I wasn't building anything with him. I was setting fire to everything he touched. And soon, he would realize that the woman he betrayed wasn't just back. She was back to destroy him. The days passed in a delicate dance, him believing he was leading, while I pulled the strings from the shadows. I played my role flawlessly, the devoted woman who hung on to his every word. But every sweet smile, every gentle touch, was a carefully placed move in the game I was about to win. He took me to an exclusive gala, the same one where in my past life he had first introduced me as his fiancée. I remembered how proud I had been back then, how I had clung to his arm, believing I was the luckiest woman alive, how foolish I had been. This time, my smile was the same, my laughter just as soft, but inside, I was watching, calculating. I already knew how this night would end. And it wasn't with me in his arms. As he mingled with investors, I excused myself, slipping away to find the one person who could accelerate my plan. In the past, I had ignored the quiet warnings, the subtle hints that something wasn't right. Not this time. I found Damian Langford, his former partner, the man he had backstabbed to climb higher. Damian's dark eyes met mine, flickering with surprise before settling into amusement. "Didn't expect to see you here." I tilted my head, offering a polite smile. "I'm not here for pleasantries," I murmured, leaning in just enough to make sure he listened. "I'm here to make you an offer." His brow lifted, curiosity gleaming in his gaze. I had his attention. Good, because the downfall of the man we both despised had just begun. By the time I returned to my so-called fiancé's side, his arms slipped around my waist, oblivious to what had just transpired. He had no idea that I had just shaken hands with the man who would help rip his empire apart. That night, as we drove home, he reached for my hand, lacing our fingers together. The warmth of his skin against mine sent a shiver down my spine. Not of love, but of rage, of the memories of how those same hands had signed away everything I had once held dear. "I love you," he murmured, pressing a kiss to my knuckles. The same lips that had whispered empty promises, that had kissed another woman while my world crumbled. I turned to him, letting my lips curve into a soft smile. "I love you too." And for the first time, I understood what true deception felt like. The night air was cool against my skin as we stepped out of the car, his hand warm on my lower back. I let him guide me inside, let him believe I was still the devoted woman he had shaped. The walls of this house, once filled with love, now felt like a battlefield. Every step I took a silent declaration of war. He pulled me close, pressing a lingering kiss to my forehead, whispering, "Everything I do is for us." Lies. Every single word was a lie, and soon he would choke on them, just as I had before. In our bedroom, he undressed slowly, watching me with the same hunger that once made my heart race. But now, all I felt was ice in my veins. I turned away, pretending to fix my earrings, masking the disgust that twisted in my stomach. He didn't deserve my hatred yet. Not until he realized what was coming. I let him touch me, let him whisper sweet promises in the dark. But my mind was already elsewhere, weaving the perfect trap. He would never see until it was too late, until he lost everything, just like I had. Morning came, and I moved through the motions of a life that wasn't real. Breakfast in the sunlit kitchen, his arms wrapping around me, lips pressing against my neck. We should start making wedding plans soon. He murmured against my skin. A shiver ran through me, not from excitement, but from the weight of knowing how this would end. He would never walk me down the aisle. He would never see me in white, never hear vows of forever. Instead, he would watch his entire world burn while I walked away without a second glance, just as he deserved. At noon, I met Damien again, this time in a secluded cafe where no familiar eyes would follow. He leaned back in his chair, fingers drumming against the wooden surface, studying me like a puzzle he wasn't sure how to solve. "You're serious about this?" he asked, voice low, unreadable. I didn't hesitate. I want him ruined, completely. His lips curled into a slow, knowing smirk. Good, then we're on the same page. I lifted my cup, meeting his gaze as I took a deliberate sip. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about justice, about power. Over the next few weeks, the cracks in his empire would begin to show. Carefully, methodically, I placed seeds of doubt in the minds of his most trusted allies. A whispered suggestion here, an innocently placed document there, just enough to make them question, just enough to make them wonder. Loyalty built on lies was fragile. It would only take the slightest push to bring it all tumbling down. And while he spent his nights dreaming of a future with me, I spent mine ensuring that the only thing waiting for him was his inevitable fall. It was coming. One evening, he returned home late, frustration etched into every tense line of his body. "Some of my investors are backing out," he muttered, rubbing his temples. I set down my book, feigning concern, leaning closer. "Why? What happened?" My voice was soft, soothing, the perfect mask. He sighed, shaking his head, oblivious to the satisfaction curling in my chest, because I knew exactly what happened. The pieces were moving, the first domino tipping forward, and soon, one by one, everything he had built, on deceit, on betrayal, would collapse beneath his feet, and I would be there to watch. The woman he had cheated with, the same woman he had chosen over me, was next. I arranged a meeting under the guise of reconciliation, watching as she arrived with wary confidence, believing she had won. How foolish! "You look good," she said, tilting her head, amusement in her eyes. I smiled, taking my seat across from her, fingers tapping idly against my glass. "I suppose betrayal makes a woman glow?" I murmured. Her smirk faltered, just slightly. She didn't know that I wasn't here to beg, to cry, to plead for anything. I was here to end her. "I don't have anything to say sorry for," she said, crossing her arms, her bravado an empty shield. I chuckled softly, shaking my head. "Oh, I don't need an apology," I said, meeting her gaze with quiet amusement. "I just wanted to see how much you'd be worth once he's nothing." She blinked, caught off guard. "What do you mean?" I leaned in, lowering my voice. When his empire crumbles and he's left with nothing but regret, do you really think he'll hold on to you?" The flicker of doubt in her eyes was delicious. Let the games begin. That night, he pulled me into his arms, kissing me deeply, whispering, "I don't know what I'd do without you." my nails dug into his back, my smile sweet as honey. You'll find out soon enough. Every touch, every kiss, every whispered lie was another brick in the walls I was building around him. And when the last brick was laid, when he finally realized he was trapped, there would be no escape, no mercy, because I had given him everything, and he had repaid me with ruin. Now, it was my turn to return the favor. As I lay beside him, listening to the rhythmic rise and fall of his breath, I allowed myself a moment to imagine it. The final act, the last play, the day he realized I had been the one pulling the strings all along, that every move he made had already been calculated, anticipated, orchestrated, and that the woman he had once discarded was now the woman who held his fate in her hands. He had underestimated me once. He had believed I was weak, naive, helpless, but he was wrong, because now I was the one in control. The cracks in his empire deepened. With each passing day, business partners hesitated. Deals fell through. Whispers of corruption spread like wildfire. And yet, he still kissed my forehead every morning, still held me close at night, oblivious to the fire growing beneath his feet. It was almost cruel how easily he trusted me, how blind he was to the way I had turned his world into a house of cards, one gust away from collapse. Soon he would understand. Soon he would wake up and realize that the woman he had betrayed had become his greatest nightmare. At his latest board meeting, his frustration boiled over. "Who the hell leaked this?" he shouted, slamming his fist against the table. His once loyal associates exchanged glances. Hesitant, unsure, doubt was a deadly poison, and I had poured just enough to make them sick. I watched from the shadows, silent, unseen. The man who once held absolute control now fought to keep his grip, and as he stormed out, jaw clenched, rage burning in his eyes, I smiled to myself. He was losing control, just as I had once lost everything, and I was just getting started. That evening, I greeted him at the door, arms wrapping around his tense shoulders. "Rough day?" I asked, voice laced with faux concern. He exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "It's nothing I can't handle." Lies. He could feel the noose tightening, even if he didn't yet know whose hands held the rope. Mine. I poured him a drink, watching as he downed it in one gulp. "Drink up, love. Drown your worries. Numb yourself. Because when you finally realize the truth, the pain will be unbearable." And I wanted him to feel every excruciating second of it. The next day, I made my final move against the woman he had betrayed me for. She had always been smug, confident in her place at his side. But power built on stolen love was never meant to last. "You might want to start looking for a new man," I murmured as I passed her, my tone casual, almost kind. She scoffed, rolling her eyes, but there was a flicker of unease. Good. Let her doubt him. Let her wonder, because soon she would see him for what he truly was, a sinking ship dragging everyone down with him. She found out before he did. The moment the news broke, I knew. My phone buzzed with her desperate messages, her disbelief turning to fury. "You knew this was coming, didn't you?" she accused when I finally answered. "Of course," I said simply. Silence. Then a shaky breath. You planned this." A slow smile curled my lips. "You thought you were winning, but you were just another piece on my board." The call ended abruptly, and I could only imagine her horror, but she wasn't my concern anymore. The final target was waiting for his reckoning. The walls were closing in on him now, And for the first time, I saw it, the fear, the realization that his world was unraveling, that his power was slipping from his grasp. "Something's not right," he murmured one night, his brows furrowed. I rested my chin on his shoulder, my fingers trailing down his chest. "What do you mean?" I asked sweetly. His eyes searched mine, suspicion flickering for just a moment. But then he sighed, shaking his head. "Nothing. I'm probably overthinking." "Yes, love. Keep telling yourself that." The worst was yet to come. The next morning, everything exploded. News outlets, legal investigations, betrayed investors. Everything came crashing down in a storm of destruction. He paced the living room, phone to his ear, barking orders, desperate to regain control. But it was useless. This time, there was no escape. I stood in the doorway, watching, waiting. Then, as he slammed the phone down in frustration, he finally looked at me. And in that moment, I saw it. Recognition, realization, fear. He knew, maybe not the full extent of it. Not yet, but he knew I had something to do with this. And it terrified him. He reached for me, desperation flickering in his eyes. "You believe me, don't you?" he pleaded. I didn't do any of this." I tilted my head, considering. Then, with the softest smile, I whispered, "Why would I believe a liar?" The color drained from his face, his fingers tightening around my wrist. For the first time, he was the one afraid of losing me. But it was far too late. The man who once controlled my fate now stood powerless before me, his empire crumbling, and I was the one who held the final card. As the authorities arrived, sirens wailing in the distance, he finally understood. "It was you?" he choked out, his voice barely above a whisper. I smiled, stepping back, watching as his world collapsed around him. "You should have killed me when you had the chance," I said softly, my voice filled with something he had never heard before. Triumph! He reached for me, but I was already gone, walking away, leaving him in the ruins of the life he had stolen from me. This was his ending, not mine. My story had only just begun. And as I stepped into the night, free at last, I exhaled. The past was gone. The pain, the betrayal, it had all led to this moment. I had won, and there was only one lesson left for him to learn. Love was never the weakness. Trusting the wrong person was, and now he would spend the rest of his life paying for that mistake.